Welcome to SHOWstudio. It's New York Fashion Week, and I got back from New York about an hour ago, so I'm super jet lagged and tired. But hopefully, we will have a very exciting and lively discussion because we're talking about Raf Simons' debut show for Calvin Klein, which I got to see, which is very exciting, so I can give everyone the inside scoop. But I feel like since this appointment was made, it's kind of been like a spectre that's kind of hung over all of fashion. Like everyone's doing interesting things, people are coming out with new imagery, but it's all comes back to what's Raf going to do, what's Raf going to do, what's Raf going to do. And I think it's really interesting for numerous reasons. The first one being sort of America at the moment, and this is such an American brand, and obviously Raf in his own label collection looks at America, and then within this collection has made a big focus on America, and that's obviously a sort of a very interesting topic at the moment. I think there's also that second aspect of Calvin Klein, which is in many ways kind of did the things that are very relevant in fashion now before anyone else. When you think of things like gender neutrality, it's something that Calvin Klein played with very, very early on. And also I think the imagery they've come out with recently has been really strong, so how Raf can kind of take his own sort of view on that, like that My Calvin's campaign was really brilliant, but obviously he's going in a new direction. So there's loads to talk about. That's enough from me. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, starting with you, Harriet.
Hi, I'm Harriet Quick. I'm an editor and journalist.
I'm Ian Connor. I'm a creative consultant / stylist.
And you've got the best chair, so
you're the king today.
Yeah, you're like, I'm the king.
Hi, I'm Gianluca Longo, contributing European editor for W magazine based in London, and fashion observer and fashion journalist and anything else.
I'm Grace Woodward, and I'm a fashion consultant and consultant brand director at Desandra Rhodes at the moment.
So, what does everyone think about what I was just saying there about, I guess let's start by talking about America, because I think it's interesting. I'm going to go to you, Ian, because you're our American correspondent on this panel. Tell me how you think designers can, and whether you think designers should be sort of political and talk about issues that are happening in America at the moment.
I feel as if design at all should be, what did you say?
Like, should design be political, and should design...
No, not at all. Like, it's a part of your brain, you get what I'm saying? You shouldn't be subjected to one thing. If I live in a jungle and I want to design, like, let's say, shit that's revolving around the city, if that's where my brain is at, then that's what I should do, you get what I'm saying? So, it doesn't matter, it feels like it's just segregation. That's how you, like, I heard Jeremy Scott grew up on a farm, and you see how outspoken his clothes are. Who's to tell him he can't think like that?
Yeah.
So no, it shouldn't be any type of politics, and as sad as it is politics though, just like anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting that the unsaid things in fashion, that, you know, whatever the intention of a collection, it can be read in so many different ways. And I think a lot was made of the fact that Raf did the I Love New York top at his own show, and then with this show he played Bowie, This Is Not America. Like, what's everyone else's take on it? I think it's interesting, sort of.
I mean, on the flip side of that, as a consumer, the way that we have rights, politics are so difficult to get into as a bystander. If you're not a politician and you're not, you know, making decisions, how do you feel like you have power over things? And our expenditure, you know, we put our money where our mouth is, and so I think that by that, as a consumer, it is being political who you buy, where you're putting your money, who you're backing.
But I think what's interesting, I often think that I find this when I teach with sort of super young people, like 18, 19 or whatever, they don't think about it in terms of what they're buying, they think about it in terms of what they're posting about. Like, so they can, it's less that thing of like what you wear or the statements you make through what you spend. It's often like, you know, what you put on your social media, what you put on Twitter, what you, like that kind of veneer that you create for yourself is where you think your power lies, because, do you know what I mean? It's that fake existence that just didn't exist. Like, and that's why I don't think you have things like slogan t-shirts just don't work anymore, because it's like, why would you wear it on a t-shirt when you can just post a quote online? Do you know what I mean? I think that's...
Yeah, but by saying that, actually, in the last 2 seasons, we've never seen as many quotes and messages, and you know, from Christian Dior to Vetements, who started the whole trend. So, you know, it's actually kind of a reverse of what you're saying. So I don't know actually where truth is.
Yeah, it's interesting. what do we make of Raf Simons' appointment at Calvin Klein?
Super exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, amazing. I
Is
think
it good
within
fit?
that show you can kind of see that feeling of somebody who's moved there in the last, when did he move? In last summer?
Yeah.
But just that excitement and intrigue and curiosity. And having, I guess, being there and working there through Trump, through protests, through a very kind of critical time in history, it's like, of course he's going to absorb that and everything else around him in the studio atmosphere. But at the same time, within that show, I think, put forward a very strident, precise and strong image, which still maintains that kind of egalitarian ideal of Calvin Klein somehow. But it's not smiley, smiley American dream, not that that's his lexicon, but, you know, he's quite a tightrope, I think.
Yeah, I think Calvin Klein's a really interesting brand because you think of it now as almost being quite sort of peppy and cheerful, but actually there's like that real grit to Calvin Klein that you can exploit. Like if you think of those CK1 adverts, you know, they're amazing and so relevant to now, and there is that sort of, well, that real overt sensuality to it, which I think is something that Raf has always played with, because it's youth as well, like Calvin Klein, like so much of you think of like Kate Moss, like 16 or whatever in those campaigns.
Yeah, I suppose, you know, Calvin Klein has always been known for what I've known, you know, this dichotomy between the American minimalism, you know, the very sleek silhouette, and so always this subtle sexual appeal, you know, of the fragrances or, you know, the underwear campaigns or whatever. And I think that is what Raf has managed to capture. I suppose what Harriet was saying about, you know, the American spirit of everyone is smiley and preppy. I mean, Raf is actually taken a very intellectual element to what Americanism means. So elements from culture, elements from you know, the classic way of wearing, you know, Western style or the preppy or the denim. And I think he did a very good job yesterday.
Do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
The music. I didn't watch the live feed. I've just looked at the stills images, and I think that's informed my opinion differently than, you know, talking before how you guys will have seen it, because
the music really changed.
That's what I was saying. It's like now I know
Yeah.
what the tracks are. Like they played one of the famous tracks from Midnight Cowboy, and then you kind of, when you relate that to some of the Americanas, but also the darkness of that film.
It was, well, the soundtrack was weirdly, it was quite calm, but it was quite, it wasn't a particularly positive soundtrack. Like there was I Want to Be Sedated, and there was like a big spoken word bit from Virgin Suicides. It created a certain mood, like this sort of, it's quite like relative sort of dystopian sort of sense to it, which was quite interesting. And then you had all this amazing sort of the artwork that they had hanging from the ceiling, because they'd done that big, well, it's a continual collaboration with Sterling Ruby, but all these pieces hung from. But do you think that there's a danger that Calvin Klein would become too, like someone like Raf Simons has the most amazing art references, you know, incredibly collaborative as a designer. Is there a danger of it becoming too sort of cerebral or too intelligent?
I don't know, because when you look at it, actually, when you're looking at the clothes, they're very straightforward. You know, it's a sort of reinvented Wall Street suit. It's a leather jean. You know, it's you know, they're very straightforward.
But even like the visual language, like talking of this campaign, like, I think it's beautiful. But then I was thinking about that Mike Calvin's campaign, and like, it's not very cool, the Mike Calvin's campaign, but it like speaks to everyone. Whereas this, I think, speaks to, it gets like a nod of approval from people in the know.
I mean, if I put my celebrity stylist head on, I kind of go, okay, this is an amazing appointment. It's very exciting. It's not a given that it's going to work because of the taking something which is known basically for pants and then making it this, you know, incredibly, I think, brave debut where you're like, I'm like, okay, so I would be going, okay, who's his gang? Where are the women? Who is going to wear this? Because at the moment, my first interaction with it was like, this is challenging. So it's challenging on an intellectual level, but I think it's challenging who the customer is going to be, who the wearer is going to be. And I can't quite pontificate on that yet.
Do you think it's cool, Ian?
It's just really, it's really funny to me. It's like how Raf, like, it's funny how he can come at someone like Virgil for certain things, you get what I'm saying? But he's doing exactly what he's coming at him for. You get what I'm saying? Like he's coming to New York, and then like I love New York. I was like, it's appropriating in a sense.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's like I don't like the same feeling that I have for Raph that I did when I was younger. I don't anymore, and I don't exactly blame him based off like the fashion scene has been fucked up for like the past few years. As much as it seems like it's a progress and like more people have gotten to it, it's like these people don't understand, and I know he understands that. Therefore isn't real, so he can make moves, like he can do shit like, oh, I love New York, instead of like teenage or savage and blah blah, like how he did in his earlier collections. He's just playing into parts of what people want, and he's like laughing, but he's tired at the same time. Yeah,
it's interesting that you use the word appropriating, because it is that, like, there's a really interesting thing in the press release, really high up. It says, it's talking about the Sterling Ruby stuff, and then it says it is part of Simmons' curatorial approach to the brand, which I think is really interesting. This idea of like picking and choosing elements and putting them together. And are you saying you sort of take issue with people doing that? Like this?
Yeah, like I love genuine stuff. Like I said before, like I can be in the jungle and make design concepts based off a city. But a lot of this shit nowadays isn't genuine.
What do you think is genuine?
That's why I like to know about who's designing my shit before I wear it.
Yeah.
I like to read up on them. Like I like to know their history, where they're really coming from.
So why were you such a big fan? Sorry, I'm just interested by this, because why were you such a big fan of Raph at the start?
Because he's like, I know that was him in his mind. I've met Raph before, and my brother knows Raph, Rocky or whatever, and like from what I know, he's a very shy person.
Yeah.
Same way, like I'm not shy, but I'm like pretty put to myself. But he brings the most outspoken shit, like, and it's amazing. Because it's like, he's gone through a battle in his head. That's the way I look at it. It's like, this is what's really in his mind, but this is him physically. And that's why I appreciated him so much. Like, we built a religion around this guy. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, we almost fought people if they didn't know they rap shit. You get what I'm saying? If you didn't know your rap history, oh, what's up? Yo, you don't deserve that. Come here, take that off.
You have Raph tattoos, is that right?
Yeah, I did.
What do you have?
His Consume collection.
Oh my god.
I want to see it. Oh my god, okay.
Yeah, this is a shirt.
That is a proper fan. That is amazing.
I also have the Teenage Riot flag tattooed on me and History of My World tattooed above my forehead. So
what point, you kind of said that your opinion towards Raph has changed. What point did it change?
When shit's like, when I started fashion, started getting fucked up. Like when, no disrespect, but like people like Dimna, like I know that he's laughing at people. You get what I'm saying? Like he's laughing at people with certain pieces that he designs.
Do you guys agree with that? I completely agree with what you're saying. I think there's this climate of like cynicism in fashion at the moment.
I can sell anything. I think
Demna's view is quite compassionate. I don't think he's laughing.
I do think there's an element of like.
It's not to say you need to have a sense of humour as well, but I don't think it's.
I agree with Harriet. I don't think it's laughing. I don't think it's mean. It's just been very smart in getting the right moment of relaunching something completely in a moment where there was so much of overproduction of fashion, so many clothes, so many trends, so many of everyone, of every designer, of every brand. It's just a moment of break it through it, just with clothes. Why is it called Vêtements? Just showing clothes that he wanted to, he wanted to create,
but
he wanted to make.
There's a slight cynicism to it.
There's always cynicism in fashion, in any way. I mean, if you, even on yesterday's show from Raf Simon, there could be a little bit of cynicism if you want, to take off, the fur covered with plastic, or I don't know, the take on the cowboy boots. I don't know, make it a bit more fashionable. I mean, there's always been a bit of cynicism in everything, in every single, and actually cynicism is what makes something a bit more interesting and more creative sometimes. But I think I don't see that negative in Dimna, but I think it's been very smart. So
I was surprised at how kind of on that point this show was. I felt there were, well, we was discussing earlier, there's a lot of Helmut Lang in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I felt very vêtements, it felt very of the now, which is kind of, I was surprised.
But then I think that's what's weird at the moment, because like, I know I put up this Instagram recently, it was like the Tom Brown show and he did these super long sleeves. And I was like, oh, Tom Brown does a Vetements sleeve, which obviously isn't a Vetements sleeve, it's like thousands of people have done that sleeve. But people got really angry in the comments, they were like, that's not a Vetements sleeve, people have done that before. And it's even interesting when you think, because something looks Margiela-esque, we're like, oh, it's Vetements, when actually like Raf is probably...
the flip side.
Yeah, that's what's so weird. Like, but then also like Raf is sort of, his knowledge of Margiela and of Helmut Lang, like and it is that thing, it's like, when is it appropriate to beg, borrow and steal in a way, you know, because Raf does, you know, plunder those archives and those past collections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He did, and that even, what was the collection that he came back out with, like the oversized stuff? I want to say maybe 2000, what year is this? 15 pairs?
Oh, what, all the big puffer
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, it was really recently, it was like 2 seasons ago, or 3 seasons ago. Yeah.
And it was so funny seeing people like, Vetements, like,
I know.
like, no, like, Rav, like he's going back to his roots, like, nah, like, all right.
People have such short memories, they're such short memories.
It's not short memory, they don't have knowledge. Like I said, it's a new day and time in fashion. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't come from a fashion school. Like, I don't come from a fashion upbringing. Everything I know is self-taught. Discussions with Matt, discussions with Virgil, discussions with Ye, discussion with my brothers. I didn't even know of rap until up to like, let's say 5 to 6 years ago. And I based my life off learning, you feel me, rap. But it's not like my mom didn't dress me in rap. I was 14, 15. But these, it's not even kids, even grown-ups, the new age of fashion, they just throw it on and they don't care to know.
But outside of, you know, we all work in the industry, outside of the industry, people I don't think they pride themselves on having knowledge, they just want to consume stuff.
No, I disagree with that. I was thinking about this a lot because I've just done this exhibition up north about the influence of the north of England on fashion and visual culture. And like some of the people we worked with on that, like particularly actually Mark Leckey, and it's interesting because I went to the Calvin show in the morning and then I went to the Mark Leckey show at MoMA PS1. And there's that, and I looked at the Fiorucci Made Me Hardcore video, and there's this amazing poster for Fiorucci, and he talks, the reason he called it Fiorucci Made Me Hardcore is this idea that something as commonplace as like a jeans brand can become something that in people's mind is so sort of totemically important to who they are. And I really saw that up north, like things like Adidas, just, and like this intense knowledge, like which certain people like casual culture is that thing of priding yourself completely on knowing absolutely everything, like knowing all these different brands, knowing the complete heritage of them. And I think
if you were a Calvin Klein customer now, like in the UK, any one of us, anyone that's not in the fashion industry, what would they be buying into with Calvin Klein? What knowledge would they have? Like the Instagram thing.
I think what's really interesting is that if we think of like Calvin Klein mainline before anyway, you know, Francisco Costa, he did great minimum clothes, beautiful texture. It never got anywhere near a store, it seemed to me. What was in a store was a really boring black jersey dress.
But by choice.
Is this going to actually reach a store?
I think that's the
bigger
point of it,
companies like Van Heusen, isn't it?
But it's always that way.
Is it going to get there?
I think, you know, Raf also got, again, in another big brand with a lot of issues there, because you know we've been used to know Calvin Klein for the jeans, for the pants, for the jeans and the pants actually.
Not the fragrance anymore.
And maybe not even the fragrance, but and then you know we have the Francisco Costa, it's a beautiful collection, very couture, incredibly analytical, very studied, a lot of study on research on fabrics and elastin and a mixture of furs and plastic and whatever, and it was literally isolated on this ivory tower.
Yeah.
I think now Raf is again in front of a big task of let's make Calvin Klein back to the shops, let's make it work as a normal label as any other, like Balenciaga or like Valentino, whatever. So people want to buy, not only to look at and then consuming denim and pants. So it's a kind of a big challenge for him.
Yeah.
But you could see yesterday.
The word challenging keeps coming up for me with all of this.
Yes, but I was watching yesterday on live. I was watching the video live. Someone was posting it on how do you call it, Instagram Live,
Yeah.
and I could check all the buyers, the brands, the matches. They were all there, and like someone else already texted Instagram it today. Going back to the showroom today to do appointments, already some buyers like Colette, whatever.
So there's a huge drive.
You will see there will be a big drive on make it no commercial, but make it now possible to buy for all of us, and not only.
I think it's also about him trying to re-establish like the cult of Calvin Klein. Like, it is interesting what Ian's saying, this idea of like really associating yourself with a brand, and I think that is something that has slightly got lost, and it's partly like the speed of communications, I think, because like brands are putting out so much content, and then magazines themselves are kind of fickle because like they want to get hits, so they'll write these articles constantly of like, the coolest new brand you need to know, and then there's another one like next week, and it's constant. And I think there is a thing of trying to establish a cult around a brand again, which is, you could say there's a cult around Vetements. I don't know if it is the same thing as, I don't think it is like the levels of commitment that people used to have to a label like a Helmut Lang or a Margiela. It's just not, or a Comme des Garçons. I don't know, what's you're making noises.
My code thing was, I would say rap, but now look at it, it's like, it's not that I've outgrown it. It's not rap, but like just the whole code thing. Like, you have your Russian kids that love Vetements, like it's mainly Europeans, you get what I'm saying, that like, that know how to kill Vetements, or the kids that know how to kill Gosha. But what comes next week though, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Is that oversized hoodie still gonna be cool to you? How like my fucking poltergeist trenches, you get what I'm saying? Am I still gonna have that same, are you gonna still have that same pride wearing it?
Yeah.
Do you think Raf has maybe kind of gone off a bit because he's been doing all of this other stuff, like the whole nightmare for him that was Dior? Do you think that that's kind of stealing his creative spirit?
I feel as if he's just tired. He doesn't, he's getting, like, I don't want to speak for him because I don't speak to him, but from my outlook and me knowing, like, my brain, it's like, he's getting what he wants, like, and he's trying to get out. He's gonna get out eventually. Like Raf, I feel as if within the next 2 years, he'll probably retire.
I actually totally agree with this. I think he wants to do this, and he wants to get a kick-ass salary, make an amazing start, almost in the same way Eddie Semon did at Saint Laurent, be like, I can do it, here's my proposition, reset the brand. I think he just wants to have a nice time and buy loads of art.
like
God,
Helmut Lang did.
Just be like, I don't know if he'll like shred his archive in the same way, but I think there is that thing of like I love this appointment, but then there is this thing to me of like, I don't quite get, when he gave that interview where he said he just wanted a quiet life, then I was like, this is a huge job. I think there is that.
Yeah, but it's not as huge and such a big commitment as Dior. I mean, Calvin Klein is not, it's a worldwide big nightmare and heyday of handbags and accessories and shows and couture and
with Dior also he didn't get input.
Oh shit! Oh my god!
That's terrifying. Are you okay?
Is that you? No.
It's deconstructing.
Can someone just help Harriet with the chair?
Help her.
I think this just wants to leave.
Where did you get these chairs from? I mean,
it's for aesthetic purposes.
That's quite appropriate, isn't it?
Yeah, why don't we just swap out the chair?
Get another golden throne.
This is nice.
Yours is very comfortable, I can see.
Yeah, I'm cozy.
I think that's rotting.
I'm good.
So maybe we should reconvene by having a look at the show and deciding what we think.
I couldn't help but think of my grandmother's furniture. She used to wrap up in plastic.
In plastic.
I just could not get that idea out of my head.
Yeah. Well, it's the Great American Sofa cover. I think Nicole Phelps wrote about that in her review. They did. What was interesting is it was in the building.
Their own
of
building,
the Calvin Klein
yeah.
offices, and it felt super small being there because they did 2 shows, so it meant that they felt quite intimate. Oh, you can see me. Famous at last. It was actually quite a weird show to be at because for the first like 4 looks, I was like, you know, what's going to happen? And it was split into lots of different sort of these weird sections almost. Like there was this kind of quite dressed up, like all the fur and plastic bit. And then there was that whole denim bit, and then there was the whole leathers bit.
So they've edited it, this is edited?
No, they just, but it felt like it was like 4 distinct collections.
Was Calvin there? Calvin Klein himself?
Not that I saw, but quite possibly. There were so many celebrities there, and like hilarious celebrities. Like,
Who?
Well,
They're
Brooke
not
Shields was there, no?
around.
like
They're
Gwyneth
in one.
Paltrow.
Brooke Shields.
Okay.
Brooke Shields
Cindy
from the
Sherman was
Calvin
Cindy
there.
Klein.
Sherman was there.
Oh yeah, I read
Sophia
that.
Coppola.
Sophia Coppola.
11 from
Greta
Stranger Things is there.
Yeah,
She's so sick.
Yeah, they were very cute, the Stranger Things kids.
Yeah.
But what's really funny with the Stranger Things kids is when you see these like paparazzi photographers go and ask them for a photo, because you know usually when it's like Alexa Chung or someone, they're like, Alexa, but with the kids they're like, excuse me, sorry.
Can I get one for my daughter?
I know, but then they're
Yeah.
like that Millie girl was like being really like giving it everything. She's amazing. It's interesting because it's like, I don't know, it's like a weird show in some ways because it's not got like the punch of like a RAF show, you know, where they can
Yeah.
feel super.
And the colour doesn't come, you know, I'm always about his colour, the way he uses it and the way he mixes it, and it doesn't come for quite a while.
Well, I think, but it is that thing of like, it's like a quiet sexuality to it,
But
which
then
is what I
it's not
found really
his show,
interesting.
is it? You know, it's
No.
still Calvin Klein.
And you'll see at the end, but it's super interesting that he came out at the end with Peter Mulier, who's his like right-hand guy.
yeah.
And that was quite charming to see. But that American sort of jersey with the sheer, that to me is very Calvin Klein. It's like these typical American things made
But, you know,
very.
even the blazers, I mean, are very New York, very Calvin Klein.
Yeah. But then so the show is called Parade, and it's kind of like, it's all of like the ideas of different parts of America, I guess. Like, you know, the working person, the kid, and even you saw that in the music, like there's bits that are like prom and then bits.
The
you know.
boots with the suits, I was all about like the second-hand Cadillac dealer.
Yeah.
It took me
Yeah.
to some really great places.
Yeah.
I was really interested in it.
I love the boots, the men's boots with the metal points.
Do you like it, Ian? Would you wear it?
Yeah, I like the colorways that he used.
When the colour comes in, it's really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Why is everyone doing suits, do we think? I was thinking about this because, you know, obviously Gosha did all the suits when he showed at Pitsy.
Because I do think we haven't had suits around as a suit. We've
They
been
look-
wearing like,
Yeah.
you know, they look really new.
They do
somehow.
look, they look really good. You know, when you
Yeah.
see like kids in a suit,
Yeah.
they look so much better than kids in,
I feel like it's all based.
Streetwear,
yeah.
I like, I don't know how to exactly
That's a
say it.
wonderful suit.
Everything's like, I feel like the main uses for like these designers are like Russian kids. No, because they can do like the like cheesy like oversized 90s style suit in the club.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? By night, and then during the daytime,
Yeah.
like track pants, rolled up jeans, like they just tapped in. Like those
really
Russian
quickly.
kids
Yeah.
really tapped in.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like it's really all based on. It's nowhere else. It's like Russian kids and like Copenhagen, but no one really keeps Copenhagen in their mouth. So, but
That's a killer look. I love
This
it.
is the best coat in the world, and
Yeah.
it's amazing. And I bet loads of guys are going to wear it as well, which will be really cool.
And he really, what was that sort of, you can't read it that well, but what was that American beige tan camel really like? You know, this,
What the
where there's a lot of like pale camel stone, which is so typically like Calvin.
Everything actually the fabrics looked really beautiful and quite sumptuous until that plastic came out, and then that was really like quite. It was kind of. That was the bit that I found the most like. Obviously, there's all the sheer stuff, which is quite sexy, but that was the point where I thought he'd really got that like subversive sexuality of Calvin Klein. You know, when you because it was
it's a bit fetishy.
It's so fetishy, and those adverts were really sort of like, you know, nothing comes between me and my Calvins, and then it's like plastic pushing feathers against a girl's flat. It is like.
But I also find, you know, the campaigns that, you know, is launched between, you know, just before the show, you know, the 4 campaigns with the new imagery of a boy and a girl just wearing denim and, you know, topless or just with pants. I think this is a new take on the subtle sexuality that is Calvin Klein, and I hope it's as successful as it can be, because I find it rather smart. And of course, it's the arty element, but that's rough.
Well, there was a clever collection with that, because there's the stuff that will be like red carpet, there's the stuff that will be like fashion editorial, like that yellow coat. Then I hope we'll see them well on the stream, but they're these, so you can just see it there. Like that one actually
isn't that the picture of
Brooke Shields?
Yeah.
So clever. Like,
and the girls are quite Brooke Shields, you know, very naturally hair, very, you know.
But that is so clever. Like, because I do think. We were talking about Vetements earlier, but part of the reason Vetements was so successful, I think, is because like someone finally managed to do like a fashion jean. Like not since Helmut Lang has anyone kind of got that right. You know, like jeans are just never.
They were just had an effect on them, didn't they? It wasn't like it was reconsidered in terms of cuts.
not at all. And I'm like, if he can actually make jeans, like bring that into like sort of more of a fashion world.
This stuff was like traditional, like American quilting, sort of shaker style, wasn't it?
But then it was interesting because there's a lot of like this inherent sort of conservatism that runs through the collections in terms of the references. Like if you think of like nods to sort of like, you know, Western elements and like dressing up, the kind of denim, it's kind of that, the quilting, it's that, a lot of it is like traditional Americana, so traditional ideas of men and women, you know, what have you. But then that's mixed up when you have the boys and the girls and all the denim.
The parka, I mean, I think
it's a good parka.
And it's a big commercial hit.
Also, that would be like street style thing that everyone's wearing. Like
boys and girls.
I know.
So I think there is almost every, you know, it's almost like he wants to satisfy every single element of editorial, commercial beats, the androgyny, you know, like men's, women's, unisex. I hate the words unisex, but that kind of, you know, men and men can wear.
I just wonder if it's got enough of the kind of. I guess you know, I don't know this, but like I'm not entirely sure what Calvin Klein's aim is.
Nobody is.
Like, do they want? Is it about getting a ready-to-wear line that is worn and bought? Is it about them just rehabilitating Calvin Klein as a brand? It's really interesting that he changed the logo. Like Peter Saville worked on that. But like,
a camel coat.
Do you know what is weird? Like, why change a logo? Like
a camel coat like this will sell. So I think there is a message to reinstate Calvin Klein back on the shop floor. On the racks.
So it's less about the image. It's more about
less about the image, less about the campaigns that are going to be keeping strong. But that's what I can see from that. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But Raf is always.
I mean, you know, on first instance, I really didn't like this show.
Really?
And that's probably a good sign, because stuff that I find change quite difficult. So when you see something that's really new and really quite you know, it makes me feel uncomfortable watching it. It usually is heralding a somewhat of a change.
Yeah.
And I think that possibly is this.
There's literally nothing worse in the world than when fashion live streams do slow-mo. I don't understand why people do it. Like, just from a digital point of view, like, what is it? It's awful.
But you don't have to change your identity to kind of wear this, do you? You know, it kind of like...
This bomber jacket is another commercial, you know, there are a lot of commercial.
I can't wait to see which girls wear those, like, under-boob dresses.
Oh, I definitely will.
Really? It's like the last area left to do something sexy with.
What? Because he posted these on the feather dresses without the plastic. They put on Instagram before the show.
Yeah, it's that kind of by appointment thing, which is this weird sort of couture thing, which goes back to Gianluca's point actually that it is very much about selling clothes, like getting Calvin Klein ready-to-wear out there. What do we think about the fact that he changed the logo? You kind of laughed when we were talking about that. What do you make of changing the logo?
It's something that I would do just to show, like, it's like a dog pissing on a tree. You get what I'm saying?
Really
like, you know, the dog just goes around.
Same as what Heidi did.
Like, I'm here.
Heidi
this
did.
Is mine.
But, you know, even a closer example of Mulberry.
Like,
even
shit
Mulberry,
you don't have to do, you're just going to do it just to show that, like, you're there.
Even in Mulberry, Gianluca changed, you know, very subtly, you know, the font of the writing Mulberry. It's very much like making their point. You know, you want me there, you give me full, you know,
I just think if I were a designer, I wouldn't do it, because imagine if you fail and like you leave after 4 years and they change the logo back. It's like so. I don't know. For me, it'd be
why
too
worry?
much.
I mean, just leave the time.
There
is no failing.
If you go to like the vintage forum, you know, when you go to look up, you know, what period of time to verify. Like a Saint Laurent pieces, and you look at the labels change all the time. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that part of fashion history. That it would, even if he did fail, you're like, well, that could make them even more sought after.
And because they become part of
it's like the pink label on the Saint Laurent.
But it becomes a part of the legacy. I mean, if I don't know how long, you know, Raf is going to stay here with that logo, that will be the logo associated with the Calvin Klein by Raf Simons. So it's very much like. Again, it's a brand awareness, a brand strategy thing. It's very smart, and you know, also the idea that, you know, he's getting more involved, Peter as a creative director rather than designing himself. So it's very much looking at the picture from a bigger scale.
Well, that's actually the thing that I thought this was the smartest thing with this entire collection, was like, it looked like a Calvin Klein collection, it didn't look like a Raf Simons collection. And that's clever, because it's like the biggest thing I think when these mashups between houses and designers and these revolving doors is where you just can't tell what the collection is. It could be shown by anyone. And it's like people who can work to a brief are the ones who, like, that's why Kim Jones is great at Louis Vuitton. Like, that's why Riccardo Tisci worked really well at Givenchy, is it felt like so ingrained to sort of that house. And that's what's good about this, I think. Like, it does, I think with Raf at Dior, it just never quite felt like a Dior collection, whereas this feels like a Calvin Klein thing.
Well, his first couture collection was very Dior.
Yeah, that's true.
But that was
it.
Then I think there were a lot of confusing messages that he had to absorb, and you know, too many questions about everything else there that he couldn't, you know, he lost it.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody else except for him could bring the industry and hopefully, you know, the consumer market's attention back like he has to Calvin Klein. Because it got to the stage where I would rush to go and see certain catwalk shows. Calvin Klein wasn't even on that radar at all.
It's just the ready-to-wear just wasn't a thing. Which is a shame, actually, because the men's, like, some of the innovations that Italy did with fabrications and stuff was pretty amazing. Like, I don't know, I think it's a difficult
But is that what you want to see when you go to look at a show? You know, it's like...
No. They're so
but
cute.
Also the way
when he comes out, I've never seen a human look this happy.
They're so happy.
That's that new Raf. He used to cry.
It's so
He's a
cute.
crybaby.
I know, but I love it when he cries.
Yeah, I know. It's really cool. That's
It's
the
really
one
cute.
I like to see.
That shot of him at his last Jill Sanders show behind all the flowers when he's crying. Oh my god.
That used to be my background on my phone.
I love it so much.
And I remember that collection was one of the most beautiful collections he ever made.
The
Jill Sanders. But you know, talking about the expectation, you know, like rushing to see a collection, you know, only he could do it. He's been also very smart in creating all these expectations. Decided not to show last September, you know, the rushing in doing a collection, taking time, starting with the, you know, sending messages, you know, the by appointment collection, the new campaigns. A bit like J.W. Anderson was doing for Loewe. You remember before relaunching Loewe, there were just messages of billboards everywhere on bus stops about all the images from Stephen Maisel, Italian Vogue, and so creating that kind of expectation. So working on the marketing side first and then on the product. So I think that is a very smart
But that's
point.
exactly what it's saying here, you know, the curatorial approach to the brand. Like, it's kind of spelling, it's not like, that is basically saying he's not taking a designer's approach to the brand. Like, he's cherry picking what seems cool, what seems right. It is that J.W. Anderson thing of like,
but I think also when you've got a brand, you know, it's almost, Calvin Klein has become like washing powder, because it's about the banality of pants in a way. So, you know, how is he going to distance himself from that? It is a marketing job he's got. He's got to kind of regenerate something that had become just completely banal. And so he's got, you know, veering off, like J.W. Anderson, you know, into the kind of cerebral and intellectual, as best that he's best placed to do that.
It's a big task.
But I wonder if there's something that's quite seductive about that banality at the moment. Like going back to what we were saying before, like I do think there's a climate in fashion at the moment for things that feel like, it's kind of going back to what you were saying about Vetements, is part of the appeal of that is things that just don't particularly feel that special, that feel kind of like very relaxed, but like it's an oversized hoodie. And I think there is something about like,
but that's fashion's, I think that's fashion's reaction to politics actually at the moment, because if you look at I'm going to drop the T-bomb, you know, if you look at the Trump aesthetic, you know, which is still very much, you know, you look at what Ivanka and Melania are wearing, you know, it's the opposite of this. So it's a very kind of quiet statement. It's, you know, it's conspicuous spending, because this isn't going to be cheap, you know, even though it's banal, it's, you know.
Yeah, but then I think it's interesting that he took those elements of formality, like the zhuzhiness of like that yellow fur coat, and then covering it in plastic.
Yeah, I mean, it almost guarantees Melania Trump is never going to wear any of this. You know, you must be desperately relieved.
Maybe we'd be all surprised. You never know.
Yeah, that's what
you know, because it's an American
You
house.
never
You wonder
know.
if there's a responsibility. You know,
I see shitty basketball players like wearing stuff like.
Do you want to see the Trumps in this?
I would be so. That would be the sickest thing ever. Like, that would be the sickest thing ever.
I want Trump in the Brooke Shields jeans. That would be my favourite thing. Someone needs to style him better. His suits fit terribly. But yeah, that's not the most important thing that needs to be fixed about him. So we're impressed with the collection and we like it.
Yeah, it's cool. I was thinking the whole time, do I actually like it, or based off, like, it's all a mental thing. It's like, do I really like it? If I saw this without Raph's name.
Oh my God,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But
I don't think I like it.
But that's fashion. But that's fashion for you.
Yeah, that is
fashion
totally
is that
fashion.
as well. So unfortunately, there is a lot of elements that
If
play
this
in
was
our
like
minds.
a graduate show and it had some random kid's name on it, no one would look twice at this and be like, this is amazing.
That's not true. That's not true. It's not true. If you look at, actually, I was looking at the
You
suits.
wouldn't be as interested.
No.
But
But
But if you look at the suits, they're so beautifully made. Come on,
But
you know, if you have a little
But I don't think
attentive
that's
eye,
what piques your interest in fashion. Like, yeah, the suits, you would look at it and be like, that's a nicely made collection. But what is interesting is the reference, is when you know too much that you get more interested. So I think that's why I like, it's like those designers that manage to kind of create this cult of sort of intellectualism around them. So Rei Kawakubo, Miuccia Prada, J.W. Anderson. They've done that where they could put any old shit on the runway and people would be like,
but there's an appetite to read into things, isn't it? We want to read into
I
that.
think we are
That's what
reducing
Habakkuk.
we're narrowing our view on this, but you know, there is always a little bit that as element, but not as.
But the designers that can do that are the ones that succeed. The designers where you read into their work and you want to read into their work, and also the designers where if you don't get it, you presume it's because you're stupid, not because it's
it's just the Emperor's New Clothes joke, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, which everyone's been talking about a lot recently.
But I do think that is part of the appeal. But then the reason this is successful is because he then does back it up. Like, you look for layers of meaning and you do then find them, you know, like, which is what I think is interesting to me about this is you can, there are all these little nods and suggestions.
Yeah.
I feel like as if I would have liked it regardless. Based off, I came like, I would say from like age, when I stopped being a little brand whore, I'm 24 now, but when I stopped being like a brand whore, I would say around like age 21. Like, I started getting stuff like London brands like Ashley Williams and like Xander and stuff like that without knowing who they were at all. Like, I brought a pair of Ashley's pants and my friend does the PR for her and I could have gotten for free, but I spent my $900. So like, I appreciate what I appreciate, and I feel that's what people should learn to do more, instead of just like, all right, Raph's name is attached to it. I would have liked it, but it's like, would I have really bought it though?
Is that what you're saying the problem is with things like Vetements, is you think people are only buying it because of the name?
Yeah, because they know, like, you feel me, they seen Kylie post it, they seen, you feel me? It's nothing wrong to feel like your idols or people that you like, but it's like, do you really like this? You would have talked down on this 3 years ago. You would have called me an oversized bum.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I think that is what drives fashion. It's that desire to be something that you're not.
I know, and then that's when people get tired. That's when real people get tired, and they want no parts of it. Like, I don't want to be in any type of fashion politics. I don't want to it sucks. It really sucks. Like I said, I wasn't raised into this, but I still know. You get what I'm saying? Like, this has been my career.
The good ones go,
exactly.
like Christian Lacroix, Helmut Lang.
But also the good designers, they can reinvent, showing create something that is always new and it's always appealing. So that you never get tired of that. I think going back to what you said about Ashley Williams. Remember, Ashley Williams is also someone who gets the today moment in the youngsters. I mean, he gets the youth culture that I unfortunately don't belong to that anymore, but maybe you do. So that's why you buy it just like that, because you're more of that gang.
Also, the connections that Ashley has, like her boyfriend. Like, I don't know. I think there is these cults of times and moments, that happen.
It's the youth culture.
It's a youth thing.
But this is why this is interesting. If Calvin Klein wasn't an advertising brand, with this, we'd probably be having a different conversation, because that there's going to be, at the moment, everyone's giving it super glowing reports because that everyone likes Raf. But if this was a brand that didn't take advertising, editorial advertising, what sort of coverage would it be
I think
getting?
that's changing more and more, though.
It told me a while ago from when he booked Young Thug to do this shoot. Like, when he had Young Thug wear the silver pants with the tank top on the beat up car. I literally wanted silver Calvin Klein pants last year, and then luckily I was cool enough when I was shopping at INA in New York. I found a pair of silver Dior ones that were even better, but that's what inspired me to wear silver pants. But if I didn't see that ad, I don't think I would have ever cared to do so.
I do think there is this element, though. I think what you're saying is changing slightly, which is because of things there are a lot of big brands that are getting a lot of hype at the moment that don't advertise. So Vetements.
That's what I'm saying as a comparison, because that's there's a genuine uptake in that. So if this was an advertising brand, and it's what does it mean? Is there an uptake within youth culture or even middle-aged culture? It's I think, I don't know if this stands up by itself. That's what I'm saying. This is great. I want Raf to work here, but I feel like there's so much more that needs to be done, rather than just a whole bunch of adverts with pants on for people to really want to frenzy over it, frenzy shop over it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that the clothes haven't been that predominant in the adverts that they've done so far. A lot of it has been about either the women who are wearing it, those initial ones, those by appointment ones, often the girls were quite naked. It was more about them, and then it's a lot of jeans, pants, and paintings and stuff. So I guess that cult of wanting to look a certain way, maybe that's going to come later. I don't know. I guess I don't know what I think about it until I know what they're trying to get from him. Do you know what I mean? I just can't work that out. Is it a Saint Laurent thing where they're trying to rehabilitate the brand? Probably not, because they don't really need to. Just what is that? That's I guess.
Is Calvin Klein broken?
No,
at one
in a
level,
way,
I think everyone's going to still keep buying those pants.
But it's really weird. It's when brands get to a point that Calvin Klein are at, where they're making so much money, huge. It's they want to be the opposite, which is having a really successful ready-to-wear line and selling loads of clothes on the shop floor. And then every brand that is surviving off their ready-to-wear line dreams of selling fragrances and bags and what have you. It's that weird smoke and mirrors of fashion of what's driving it. And
I feel like what he's giving is what they're going to get. It's not going to get any deeper. He's not going to put any I don't know. But I don't feel as if he's going to put those same rebellious graphics that he once did on his clothes on. It's going to continue being very minimal and just.
But I don't think those rebellious graphics would work anymore. I think they would seem cynical now. You were talking about things feeling like you're laughing at people now, and I just think it's really hard to do stuff that feels earnest now. I do think that you know, like if people put like a big slogan on something, it looks calculated and it looks like, you know, you're trying to make money off, you know, off politics or off an ideology. And I think fashion has become too big in a way. Like when a lot of those slogans worked, it was because fashion was still largely like this kind of cult industry. I don't know, I just think it doesn't work in the same way. They don't have that same punch.
I think for what I can see here, and you know, I said it already earlier on, it's very much like from Calvin Klein as a brand to try to make it flourish again. It's like, you know, they asked Raf Simons, gave him carte blanche and said, it's your baby, do whatever you can just to almost to make it talk about again.
Again,
you know,
like I said, going back
so
to
many brands that, you know,
what's he doing at the show?
Because as we said earlier on, you know, there was like the pants and, you know, the Francisco Costa almost couture collection. There were two completely different worlds
and nothing
that they
between.
didn't collide, nothing in between. So if you wanted to buy a dress by Calvin Klein, you said, where shall I go? You know, and if you go to the flagship store in New York, you know, you were completely scared because it was such a little jewelry box. While now, literally by looking at all the buyers that were in front row yesterday, I'm sure you will see more of that everywhere. So
it's that touch points thing, isn't it? It's like, you know, having little leather goods, having shoes, having clothes. That's why Saint Laurent is so successful. That's why Gucci is so successful, and just Alessandro Michele. It's like creating all these little bits and bobs. There's not that weird divide between like, which fashion existed for so long. It was like, oh, you can buy the shoes.
There's hardly any bags in this.
There's a few bags,
there are a
but
few
you don't
bags
know
with
what's
the plastic cover.
But you know, there's obviously
stuff.
there's a pull back on that. That's not what this is about. This is
I think it's very much about the
bags.
clothes, but it's very rough. Raf is a designer, a clothes designer. It's not an accessory expert. I want to say expert. I mean, he's done beautiful, you know, Stan Smith by Raf. I mean, he knows what the sportswear is, but I think it's very much a concentration on the clothes, and also the choice of not having any handbags is by choice. It's
I also just don't think handbags are that cool at the moment. Like, you know, everyone goes on and on and on about Vetements. They haven't done a bag. Like, who cares? No one's even noticed. Do you know what I mean? Like, at all. Like, I just think that idea of like the it bag. It's like now it's like hoodies and jeans or shoe, whatever. Like, it's just, I think
they
bags
still
just
have
don't
a
seem.
JW Anderson.
Same with
bag
like
on.
Virgil Off-White, like really, really cool, but like you wouldn't be like, oh, this amazing Off-White bag. Like, I just don't think
know,
bags.
there is one. He
Is it
made a
really good?
paperclip bag that I love. No, it's really sick. It's red and he has like the strap, but besides that, it's like...
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not like a thing. Like, you're
Nothing
not
new.
like... Yeah. I don't know, it's interesting that. I like this show. I think I'm intrigued by it, but you're impressed. You like it? Yeah?
It's the first one.
It's the
I
first
think
one.
great.
Yeah, I
Great.
think we should feel very positive for him. I mean, I wish I was there, I have to say. Because I think being there, looking at
it's amazing
the
being there.
music, the expectation, you know, the artwork hanging, and the whole set would have made a completely
Yeah, it was
different
super
experience.
amazing.
But then, you know, the rest of the world doesn't get to experience a collection like that either. So, you know, it's kind of got to stand up by itself.
By itself,
Like
yeah.
the boots look great, but again, when you put them on Matches or Net-a-Porter, some people would be like, they're Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
But that's then when the marketing machine starts working around it, and then you will see lots of people. You know, why do they choose Raf Simons? Because, you know, Raf is also, you know, press friendly. He's you know, someone who talks. He's got this intellectual aspect that actually the fashion system loves. So you know.
But what I still can't work out is, does it matter what the fashion system likes and what people actually buy? I think
That's a starting point. Then, you know, the numbers will give the answer.
But do you know what I mean? It is like, I think that's what's in flux at the moment. Like,
Yeah.
we talked a bit earlier about the fashion system changing, and that is the real question at the moment. It's like, do any of us sitting there matter, or are we just like bums on seats for a live stream, like extras in a movie? You know, and I think that is something that is like, it's changing, you know.
But also,
changing.
it's like with your earring. It's like with the other one. You've got your Raf Dior
this one.
earring. So,
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And so, but he gave things that people could like frenzy over straight away. You had to have that earring, you know. And here, there isn't really these kind of things that you're like standing on its own 2 feet. There isn't. The consumer can't look at this and go, oh my God, I need that earring straight away. That's sort of an obvious sell.
I think the thing that will
guys,
go first is those shoes. Like, they're black strappy heels, and they've got, one of them has like Diamante around the edge, and the other has it across the toe. I reckon they'll, like, she's kind of wearing them.
Well,
That audience
let's
does
not
matter because you've got the buyers who's spending billions,
Yeah.
and you've got the core audience who are also buying the stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, it's almost like
No,
it's
I know
not the
that-
media, that's
Yeah.
your immediate first customer,
Yeah.
almost.
No, I do agree with you there. I think it's more like, you know, when like fashion makes a brand into something huge and then often it doesn't. I think I'm just growing cynical at watching that happen and then it meaning nothing. Like Medium Kirchhoff, which was like, had everyone who you could have wanted at those shows, covers in magazines, all this hype, and it didn't translate to anything. I think in a way, yes, the fashion press can really help a bigger brand that's already established commercially and financially to reposition itself. But in terms of like making a brand into something, I don't know if that's.
Well, look at
It's
Gucci,
basic
though.
as you kind of go.
But that was already a big brand. Do you know
Yes,
what I mean?
a big brand, but you know, it was a revolution. All of a sudden, you know, from one day to another, everyone wanted to wear Gucci, and you know,
Yeah.
that was very much like, as you say, the fashion elite who loved it and just exploded it. And of course, you have to be supported by a big marketing machine, the money behind the shops and the adverts and everything else.
But think about how instantly Instagrammable it was.
Yeah.
You know, Gucci, that it's like everything's a detail, everything that
Yeah.
you can pour over. With this, there isn't really, the yellow coat maybe, but it's not like for everybody. They're not going to
No.
be women out there going,
Looking at a shoulder line.
you're all
No,
like,
yeah.
it's not like that instant thing where you're going to be like, I need this, I want this, I want, you know, and then, you know, as you're saying again, about getting that kind of brand affinity back, of just bringing it back. This show didn't do that, which I'm a
Maybe
bit
it's
like,
going to be a
is
bit
it
of a slow burn though. You know, in a way it will be. Like, I think, because, you know, I can't remember who said it at the start, I think it was you, there is like an undertone to Calvin Klein, which is also, it is about minimalism. So it's like, how do you then do that in this current age where it's like, you know, if you looked at most of the pre-fall collections, it was like, everything was just like statement hat, statement shoe, like it was just like pile it all on, and you know that you're going to get like a good picture out of that, or like it's going to resonate on a catwalk image. So it's really hard to take a brand that is known for sort of minimalism. Is your chair collapsing as well?
No, I have to secure myself.
But I think it is hard. So I think this will
End up
maybe
like
take a little bit of
Martins.
time to get that.
I'd love to wear denim and the
I would
camel
love
coat
to
look.
think that in this market people have time. Do you know what I mean? It's
Well,
like,
that's
I
the
hope he
problem,
does.
isn't it? Yeah. When you get designers doing one season and then they're out. But I just really hope all the little fashion kids, like in London, you know, like when they all try and like everyone, like when they're all making the Gucci look and stuff when you go teach, I just really hope they all start like covering all their clothes in plastic. I just really want that to
Or just a camel coat.
I know. Well, I think it was very charming and it's given us lots to talk about. Should we give him a round of applause to wrap things
I
up?
think you will.